Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Paws Up Halftime Report. My name is Jay Gibson, the host of the Paws Up podcast, and I'm coming to you in the admittedly very lovely FIU or FAU press box as the Owls lead the FIU Panthers by a score of 24-7. I believe the Owls will receive the kickoff in the second half. That was the first half for this game was definitely a tale of two drives, and what I mean by that is the difference between FIU's first drive on offense to start the game, and then pretty much everything else for FIU's offense following that. I think the biggest takeaway from that first drive for FIU was that they could do no wrong, and Keewan Jenkins turned into prime Peyton Manning for one possession. Eventually scoring a touchdown on a dot to Eric Rivers. It set FIU up with a 7-0 lead, and you felt at that moment as an FIU fan that maybe something could happen where you could see similar success on offense as to what we saw from Central Michigan. However, as the rest of the first half turns out, that was definitely not the case as the offense struggled for the remainder of the half, and unfortunately, it felt like FAU's secondary and defensive line, for that matter, what's the proper term I would like to say? They adjusted. They adjusted very convincingly, and it ultimately backfired on FIU because they did not seem to adjust as well. They kept up to what worked with their first drive. However, Keewan Jenkins kept making very blatant mistakes, and I hate to say it, but following that first drive for the Panthers, Keewan Jenkins may have played some of his worst football as an FIU Panther, and that really hurts to say because of how great he looked to start that drive. Let's get into the big reason for that, the amount of turnovers that we saw from Keewan. He threw 2 interceptions as well as fumbled another ball. I believe there was another ball fumbled as well. So that's 4 turnovers on the day so far for the FIU Panthers. And I believe I spoke about this with Kevin in the preview, but one of the most aspiring aspects of FIU's game against Central Michigan was that they did not give up any points, or they did not give up any turnovers. And that was not the case today, as they did, and Florida Atlantic capitalized 3 out of the 4 times, I believe, totaling 17 points off of FIU for making those silly mistakes. I can't even say for the most part that FAU has looked great. It's just that they've been given very great opportunities from FIU's offense, which has set them back dramatically. You take away the turnovers, and it feels like not only is FIU in this game, but there's a chance they could be winning. However, combine that with some very silly penalties. FIU has 5 total so far. It's been very tough for this FIU offense. It felt like, especially in that final drive before halftime for FIU, they really looked like they had something going. They could score a touchdown to at least cut the bleeding. However, things did not work out, and FAU took the ball quite literally down the field and scored to bring the halftime score to 24-7. Let's take a look at some statistics. Keewan Jenkins, 14 for 21, 169 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And that doesn't include the fumble that he had as well for this game. Dean Patterson and Eric Rivers have both looked solid. 3 targets, 62 yards, and that touchdown to start the game for Rivers. And then Dean Patterson, 4 targets for 53 yards. Aside from that, there have not been any real big-time playmakers. On the receiving side, you do have Lexington Joseph, who has looked good against a team he is obviously very familiar with, 5 carries for 32 yards for flex. Aside from that, there really isn't much to say as far as what has looked good for the Panthers. I do want to highlight a couple of missed opportunities for FIU. On their second drive, I believe it was Eric Rivers that dropped a deep ball from Keewan Jenkins that probably would have been tackled, but it would have been inside the Owls side of the field, which would have potentially set up points. And then a couple of drives afterwards, there was another drop pass, this time by Dean Patterson, that also eliminated another chance at scoring. And then not that long into the second quarter, another drop by Patterson that negated a first down that forced FIU to punt. It really feels like there have been some missed opportunities from this FIU squad. If you take away the turnovers and if you take away the dropped passes, there's a chance FIU could be winning. However, Florida, to their credit, FAU has done such an amazing job capitalizing on FIU's mistakes. It's reminding me of how FIU looked against Central Michigan last week. To make matters even worse, in that final drive, JoJo Evans was kicked out of the game for targeting, so now FIU has lost one of their best players on defense, and FIU will have the ball to start the second half as well. So things aren't looking good for FIU. To provide some contrast, Cam Fancher is 5 for 15, 82 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. Fancher also has 45 yards on the ground. I can't say that FAU's offense has looked amazing. They've just been given plenty of opportunities, and they've been cashing in on them, something that FIU didn't do against Central Michigan. So we'll see what happens. I don't want to say that the game is over off the rip. It is only halftime. There's still 30 minutes to go, but FIU has not shown much in that second half or in that first half that they can be proud of, and anything that they can really build upon. They're going to need to make massive adjustments. Kewan Jenkins is going to have to play out of his mind. He's going to literally have to play lights out in the second half to get into this. And while FIU's defense hasn't looked terrible per se, they did give up way more yards per carry. Obviously, that one touchdown FAU scored was off a 4th and 1 on FIU side of the field, and the rest was history at that point. So adjustments are going to need to be made on both sides, and it's not going to be easy, but I guess anything could happen. So there's your halftime report. Not a whole lot to be said. Your score is FAU 24, FIU 7. We'll see you following the game on our Paws Up post-game show as we continue on here at Paradise between the Panthers and the Owls in the 22nd edition of the Shula Bowl. We'll see you then. Paws up.